this one is basically focused on a hotel company. Okay. So see, I think this is what it does. See, first of all, let's think of a hotel company. Okay, let me just stop sharing my screen for now. And so let's think of a hotel company. Uh, what do you think is, let's say, the senior management concerned most about?
I would say occupancy would be one thing.
Why occupancy?
Because it's a direct driver of revenue, right? So
Right.
the more occupied the rooms are, the higher the revenue.
Correct. Correct. Huh? See, for any organization, see, the revenue generation piece of it is of the highest priority for them, right? Because that is what keeps everything else ticking, right? If you look at a, let's say, certain, I think we may not go to those places often, but if you look at a hotel, for example, okay, not the likes of Udupi, right? Udupi is constantly buzzing, more or less, right? But if you go to, let's say, um, something like a Pizza Hut, okay, on a Monday afternoon, okay, do you know how many people will be there? Seven is few people, right? Probably a very, very limited number of people will be there. But see, generally we go, let's say, on a, let's say, Saturday evening or something like that, where it's like crowded, right? So that's the best part of it, so that's the best time for them, okay? But in many other situations, if you look at the reason why, for example, hotels, so take, for example, smaller hotels, okay, where they don't have the marketing muscle, right, to always, it's not like a five-star hotel, or even more, I would say, a five-star hotel, let's say near an airport, or near a very busy place, something like that, or they are very close to, let's say, a convention center or something like that, where people come there, right, and they're looking for a place to stay. So unlike it is like that, many cases they'll have very low occupancy for good chunks of time, okay, and the rest of the time, where there is a certain season or something like that, then they're occupied. So this is usually sort of how it works. So also sort of points to the OYOs, for example, right? OYOs and certain other platforms as well, which have become very successful these days, because I think all these hotels tend to have very low occupancy, and they didn't have muzzle either. So in terms of the financial muzzle either, so for that reason, and what these platforms have started doing is they got a lot of investment and started investing in all these small properties. And in fact, of late, I don't know if you guys have seen, a lot of hotels have started coming up with a tie-up with OYO, right, or certain other sort of platforms, because what they have seen is revenue generation has become easy for them. Okay, and once that becomes easy, people are sort of willing to invest. Okay, so coming back, I think the revenue generation piece of it is one of the key pieces, okay, key aspects of that particular hotel to become successful. Okay, that is what sort of keeps the lights on, make sure that everybody, that they can employ people, right, have good whatever, all the bed sheets to whatever else, the decorations and all of that, so it can keep that ticking, right? Otherwise, then what, you will not have any wait for you to be in a position to basically sort of ensure that things move on. So for that reason, Sai mentioned two things. One is the occupancy and the other one is the revenue. Okay, these are the two pieces. Okay, and trying to make sure that the rooms are occupied. Okay, so this is number one. Number two is, how do you what is the lowest level of or the most granular level of item that they can sell? Okay, what I'm asking is really, for example, if you take let's say a hotel, sorry, a restaurant. Okay, take a restaurant like Udupi, for example, right? Udupi hotels, right? So everybody is familiar with that. So uh, what is the lowest l- unit that they will be able to sell?
Uh, maybe starting with tea, Chaitanya. So and
Okay.
otherwise idli.
Huh,
Yeah.
right, huh? So maybe single idli, that's probably where they can start, right? Or
Uh,
they'll have, let's say, double idli, whatever, regular plate idli, right? And the idli plus vada and so on and so forth. That's the most granular so far as the restaurant is concerned. Like you mentioned, Shravan, I was not thinking tea, but yeah, that's a good point, right? Tea also, they sell, it's one sort of unit of tea. That's also, yeah. So now the question for you is, what is the similar unit for a hotel?
single room or 6 hours room capacity.
6 hours room capacity. So I'm not so sure many hotels sell at 6 hours, but you're right. So essentially, um, they sell basically the one room per night, right? That's the norm, right? Maybe in some other places very close to, let's say, an airport or maybe a railway station or a bus station, something like that. Then people could be selling just for 6 hours, 7 hours, or whatever. That is a possibility. Like for example, in dormitories, I have seen in railway dormitories, they actually sell, I think, just the night or something like that. You actually start by 9 o'clock, 8 o'clock, something like that, and then you vacate in the morning. That kind of thing, right? There are other dimensions or other types of offerings are also available. Okay, so okay, so the question then is, the most granular unit is the room day. So that becomes the most granular unit that they sell. Okay, so this is how we have designed this particular dashboard. Okay, it has the following things. So one is, see, on the top we have, see, first of all, I think the layout itself is something that came in very handy and helps us understand what is going on and how what's going on where, and also focus on specific areas. See, for them days, and so we had put the calendar in a
Uh, uh,
horizontal scale.
Sorry, Chaitanya. So
Huh.
please share
Screen.
your screen share.
Oh, okay, my apologies. Yes, 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 yes. Okay, so are you able to see the screen? Yes, no?
Not
Right?
yet, actually.
Not yet. Oh,
Yeah, we can
oh
see it
yeah,
now.
Right now.
you can see it now. Oh, looks like there's a lag. Apologies. Oh, okay. Okay, so let's look at this. So you can see that. So this is how the layout is. See, it sort of tries to fit more or less everything into one screen, first of all, right? If you want to scroll, there's not much to scroll. But if you want to scroll, there is a scroll bar here for the occupancy by property. Okay. Otherwise, if you look at the layout, it's like this. So you have a 2 months. This assumes that we are at the end of October and we are looking ahead November and December. Okay. And if you are looking ahead November and December, the calendar is on a horizontal scale, and we have taken, and generally, so this is something that we do, right? We talk about 5-second principle, which is one thing is, in a matter of 5 seconds, we should be in a position to start analyzing information. Okay, which means that we need to highlight the most important aspects, and they should be able to get in their information. And not just that, the other thing that we do is we generally take what's of the highest importance and we put it right on the top, so that they don't have to look for it, they don't have to search for it, right? It's right there. So like Sai had mentioned, see, occupancy rate drives revenue, right? So we take those two and we put it right on the top. So those are the top. Okay, and you look a little further, this is ADR, is average daily rate, and rev PAU is revenue per available unit. Okay, and I think sort of Jagdish has looked at it in a different context. All units could be available, right? Only X number could be available, and some of them could be under repair and so on and so forth. If that's the case, then we should only look at revenue per available unit, and not, you cannot sort of look at divide your total revenue that you got by with the total units, but only for the available units. I think that's common sense, but that's their terminology. Okay. And what we have done here is, because see, revenue and occupancy can be you can influence that factor by understanding the causes. And these days, a lot of the marketing is going on the online channels, right? You could also have non-online channels, for example, like let's say if you're a convention center, right, and you have or there is a convention center nearby, or you have a tie-up with a convention center, and you offer through them to the participants, and this happens many times, okay? And they say, okay, so we have tied up with a hotel, you can book here, we have quote-unquote discounted rates, is what they say. And when you book through them, then it's a channel for them, okay? So we haven't displayed that particular one over here, but we have displayed other, typically, the ones that people use, right? Booking.com direct. So for example, in our case, in Indian case, it will be OYO and maybe some of the other channels, like let's say Clear Trip and so on and so forth, okay? So here you see Booking.com direct, Expedia, Facebook, and so on and so forth, because these are the ones. Here you can see what is buzzing, okay? For example, you have a tie-up with a specific platform, and they have offered, then you would be interested in seeing how that campaign has run and where you're getting. Or for some other reason, for example, see, somebody has shared a link with a group saying, hey, some rooms are available here, you check them out, or something like that. Or it's possible, so for example, when a group goes, right, so Swap is knows this particular thing, right? So when you go as a group, and especially maybe if you have like 5 or 10 people, or probably more, 20-30 people, then the person say, generally they would like to stay at the same place, right? Then they'll say, okay, here's the link, whatever, go ahead and book. And then they all book. So you see suddenly there's a spike in that particular area. Things like that are possible, right? So and maybe if you are giving a discount at the time, and if you had, let's say, finished giving adequate discount, and you feel that on the rest of them you don't want to give any discount further because you are confident that you'll be able to fill those rooms, then that's the information that you should know. So that kind of, all of that kind of information can come out in the channels, okay? And below is the occupancy by property. See, here we are going to the most granular information. So the way it is laid out is that, see, if you look at basically, if you look at this particular thing, see the way you can see it. See, we are in October and we are looking ahead 2 months, November and December, right? And you can see the trends of occupancy over the next 1 month, okay? You can see here, see there's an uptick here and it has sort of come down. I think weekend here, maybe here 16, 17 they have high occupancy, weekend they have less occupancy. Oh, by the way, this grayed out portion is the weekend, okay? Weekend is something that they would have, they would have higher occupancy generally, depending on the situation. If it is the city, near offices and so on and so forth, they might see higher occupancy during the week. But if it is a leisure, that kind of a thing, then they'll see higher occupancy during the weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and so on, right? So this is November, so they have this Thanksgiving, right? So the 23rd, 24th, probably, that is the Thanksgiving weekend, so there seems to be higher occupancy there, and there's the weekend here and so on. But you can also see December, there is less occupancy almost throughout, and with the occupancy going up only towards the year end, right? And that could have like multiple reasons. One is that generally if you are in October, you're probably not booking so much for December, because people generally plan maybe about 15 days in ahead or something like that, right? And if it is a little forward, unless you know that the occupancy is going to be, for example, when I travel, I know specific locations where I know that unless you book as early in advance, either the rates are going up, they have the airline kind of pricing there also, or alternatively you may not find at all, in which case, so that's a discounted price kind of thing that I go to. And if it were to be a different place where, if I have to, if you have to pay, on par with the, whatever high prices that you see in some of, let's say it's, the downtown kind of an area, then it will be very difficult. So we tend to like book very in advance. But otherwise, in general hotels, for example, if it is a quote unquote MRP that you're paying, then you would rather wait and be, be confirmed about that. And then if you're sure that you need the place, then you probably go ahead and book, right? So you might see that kind of a pattern sort of coming up here. And maybe, people have sort of planned for their year end, and so the new year celebration, etc. So there seems to be higher occupancy. But the fact is, you can clearly see the trend without any problem, right? You can see here that uptick is here, the uptick is here, uptick is here, and here. This is where you need to really focus on. And maybe if you would like to give any offers, that should be, and that to see if you're at the end of October and you can see the first few days there is, hardly anything. You might want to go to something like Hotwire. Hotwire is where people sort of offload their excess inventory, okay? And if they have low occupancy, see, I mean, just like an airline for hotel, let's say, tomorrow you have a room that is unoccupied, okay? And let's say you generally get, let's say, 2,000 rupees, for example, right? And if you end up not giving it at all, what would be the impact? And let's say you give 50% discount and you get only 1,000 rupees, okay? 2,000 to 1,000, okay? Then what are the economics? Any thoughts?
So if the price is reduced, it is possible that the number of bookings might go up.
That is true. That is true. That the question that I have is, as a, let's say we place ourselves in the shoes of a hotel, okay, and we say, okay, see, 1,000 rupees is too low for me. I would not like to give the room at 1,000 rupees because we are incurring a loss, quote unquote, incurring a loss, okay. Or we would say, okay, I would rather take the 1,000 rupees, okay. So how do we look at it? That is for tomorrow. I'm not saying this is for, let's say, 1 month from now or 2 months from now. It is only for tomorrow.
It depends on the basically brand. So let's say if it's a small hotel, it will go for 1,000 rupees, even though it's a loss for him, because he's getting something.
Yeah.
Whereas if they're a brand name like Taj and all, they won't go because if the customer got to know, their brand image would be affected.
That's a good point. That's a very good point. Okay. Good. But let's look at just the economics part of it, not the branding piece of it. So Swap has a marketing specialization, is it, Swap? Just kidding.
I think one way to look at it is if the price reduction, if I'm able to compensate it in terms of volume, I think we can go for it.
Let me give you a different example, okay? Let's take an airline, okay? The airline is about to, so there's a flight. The flight is about to take off in matter of, let's say, 10 hours from now, okay? And your occupancy is only 30%, okay? And you know that you're not going to cancel the flight, because it will be a big issue with the customers and so on. Okay, you have an occupancy of 30%. Okay, so what's the situation right now? So if you give a 50% discount on the ticket price versus, I won't sell it because I'll make a loss price. Okay, so let me just conclude this. See, when you have a flight taking off anyways, okay, Shravan, you wanted to say something?
No, Chaitanya.
Okay. Jagdish, go ahead.
I think you covered it, Chaitanya. So basically, either it's a hotel room or not, so there will be some sort of maintenance that will be involved. So if you let go, if you keep it empty, you will make even more loss. So you might as well take that 1,000 and replace it with some other costs.
Correct. So especially for tomorrow kind of a situation, right? So tomorrow is going to happen, very shortly, right? You don't have much control over it. And that too, just like a flight, when the flight takes off, right? All the seats are empty. When the seats are empty, you would actually have all the whatever. Maybe you can reduce a little bit of a food that can be put on the flight. But otherwise, and you have to, most of the cost of a flight is anyway fuel. Okay. And so if you let the flight take off with additional passengers, even if it is at discounted price, it basically adds to the revenue. Okay. Similarly with the hotels as well. And so, for example, if you have this kind of a situation where just for the next 1 or 2 days your occupancy is still low, you might just want to offload it on certain discount platforms. So, for example, Hotwire is a discount platform, right? Wherein all this kind of inventory will be offloaded. And Swapnil, very good point there. So what this kind of platforms do is they will show the location and all, but they will not reveal the name of the hotel until you book. Okay, you book it and it is non-refundable anyway. So only those people who really want to book, they book. Otherwise, you cannot get the information out saying that, okay, this particular hotel is giving it a discount or something like that. At least there is some protections there. So people tend to offload. So this kind of a inventory can be offloaded on that kind of a platform. Okay. So similarly here and so on. So there are various dynamics there. And similarly, for example, if you want to understand what is going on. So for example, see, you want to understand here what is going on, right? So you can sort of mouse over. There's a tooltip right there, and it will show, see, apartment, condos, cottage, and townhouse. How are they performing, right? So you can also look at the revenue doing. So how much revenue is generated where. You can see all of that stuff, right? On top of this, if you would like to highlight, you can just do that. That way, you can sort of navigate downward on the dashboard. You can look at the pricing as well, how things are going, right? So cottage, how much they're getting, and apartment and condo, and so on and so forth, right? And as you sort of scroll down here, we have a tooltip, and it does two things here. So one is it gives you the split. First, using the dots, also you can see which is working. You get a sense of it. You don't get an exact number, but you do get a sense of what's working how, right? On top of it, if you go into the tooltip, you'll be able to see across all the platforms and across all the types of offerings, what is the uptick in terms of utilization. Okay, you can see how many of them have been booked where. So how this helps, and also below you will be able to see Expedia.com. That's what I have put the mouse on. You are able to see Expedia, how many bookings specifically. So that's the total you're able to see. And below for Expedia, you'll be able to see where have you gotten those. So what are the promotions that work there? Okay, you can clearly see first time and referral, they have both gotten 3+3. Okay, through Expedia. This is a specific promotion within Expedia. On top of it, you can see across condo, apartment, condo, cottage, and townhouse. You can see, we know that cottage has actually sold well, and you can see what kind of sales have happened. You can see, for example, Expedia 4, Facebook 5, hotels 3, and so on and so forth. Okay, so this way you can figure out if there is a promotion working well, or if there is a specific platform working better than the others. You'll be able to identify that over here and replicate that, either promotion, or you can maybe sell some of the other units also on Expedia. Let's say if you're not offering those many units of, let's say, condo on Expedia, you might want to start offering that at this point in time. Okay, so you'll be able to get that kind of information here. And let's say if you want to drill down and go to the most granular information. So for example, see here, look at the coloring. So first of all, I think these are more attractive, and these are a little less attractive. Even this red color is a little less attractive. But you can see here, the one that's already booked is grayed out. Okay, it's in gray color. Okay, it doesn't attract attention. That is because we have to constantly get attention to what needs attention. And a vacant room, an unoccupied room, unbooked room needs basically more attention. That's why we have that in the color that needs attention. So this one, for example, right? And you can also see if you want to see what has worked, you can actually mouse over, and you can basically see, in this particular case, it's a cottage, unit number 5 for November 22nd, booked by a guest, and revenue is 197. The promotion is last minute deal, and it worked out on hotels.com. Okay, so this is the information you can get depending on the individual, so they can, sort of make sense out of it and so on and so forth. Okay. On top of all of this, so I will sort of unselect this, and now what we can do is you can select Townhouse alone, and you get a revised dashboard in the exact same format for only the Townhouse. Okay. Similarly, you can see for Cottage and so on and so forth. Okay. And similarly, if you would like to look at how your promotions have worked, let's say for the first time deal that they would like to offer, so this is how it has worked out. Okay. And similarly, if it's a last minute deal, this is how it has worked out, and so on and so forth. Okay. So so this is so far as the, let's see, look at the time. Okay, we are at 9:50 right now. So so we will conclude this session at this point in time, and the other ones we will look at in the next session. Okay. So if you have any questions, this is a good time. Okay. No questions, absolutely. All right. Okay, cool. Any other comments you would like to make? See, there are go ahead.
I was saying that one more advantage of the occupancy by property, it will help us easily identify if any unit has been unoccupied for a very extended period of time, right? So, and we can also try it, and we also have that.
You can see that over here, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And we also have the dollar amount in the tooltip. So, if it is indeed the case, then maybe the more expensive units are being unoccupied for a longer amount of time. I think that is also something that we can identify.
Yeah, it's possible. Yeah, usually it's the more or whatever most expensive ones, depending on how they see it. It's sort of yeah, I think so. Pricing could be one of the factors, but it basically gives you sort of an insight into customer behavior as to what they're thinking, right? So it could be that, see, I have seen cases where sort of less less pricey ones are the ones that are unsold.
Okay.
It is funny, but it is definitely possible. Either way, it depends really on what the customer is thinking, right? So if it is the, let's say, let's say you use that for because you would like to let's say host somebody or something like that, right? Then cheaper ones, depending on what the person is thinking, really, right? Cheap is not always the ones that sell most. Okay. It really depends on the situation, but I think the main point that you're really saying is, hey, it gives us an insight into what is happening and probably why is it happening also.
Yeah.
So yeah, Jairam, go ahead.
I think Chaitanya adding some visualization related to geographical location like map would help to even analyze more.
Got it. Yes.
Thought of that.
Yeah.
I don't
I
know.
think, yeah, absolutely. So if it were to be focused on a chain, for example, and if the analysis is happening at a central level, okay, which is let's say head office analytics team is looking at it, right, or centrally they are looking at it, then in that case, yes, what you said totally makes sense. I think this assumes one single property, okay, because we can actually sort of find, but very good point. Okay, you can also show, let's say I want to look at next quarter, for example, right? So depending on the, let's say if it is a manufacturing capacity that we are looking at, then you could be looking at 3 months, 6 months ahead, and so on and so forth. So in that kind of a situation, we should be giving a drop down to select a period so that we can actually select 3 months from now, 6 months from now, and so on and so forth. Yeah. Yeah, I think maybe one or two things that I would like to highlight just for your benefit is, see, if you look at it, look at the colors, okay? Look at the colors of the background, okay, or the headings. See, here we chose a very, very light color because we want this to attract attention, okay? Because of that, we chose to use a color that is almost blending into the background, so that we can highlight the stuff that really needs to be highlighted. Okay, and in this particular case, we chose green and blue because revenue blue and occupancy higher the better actually. So we chose green. So here we chose the remaining colors sort of all blend in, because I think this we wanted to sort of highlight a little bit more and so on. And we also got the weekend. It's a very critical piece for hotels to look at the weekend, and they need to understand weekend. Without weekend, it is it's an important piece every time, even when they are thinking, hey, should I decrease the price, increase the price, etc. They're really thinking, hey, is it a weekend or not? That makes a big difference for them. So because of that, we got the weekend portion incorporated, but at the same time, it is not too conspicuous. It doesn't attract too much attention, but it is still there in the background. You can see that over here. Okay, you can also see the font on the top. See how the larger heading is a larger font size, and 1, 2, 3, 4, they're all of the same font size. Probably this needs to be aligned a little bit better. I think it should have come in right in the center maybe. That's one issue here that we could improve. Okay, all right. So that is it for now.